You're listening to the Career Jump Podcast. Insights, interviews, and success stories to inspire and give you the edge when you make your next career jump. Hosted by your career concierge, Andrew MacAskill.
Hello, welcome back to the Executive Career Jump podcast. I'm your host and career concierge, Andrew MacAskill, and we're really lucky today because we've got David Perry with us. So David is an international expert on all areas of hiring, headhunting, and job searching. He's a best-selling author. So we can't wait to rack your brains and get some value for our audience. David, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Andrew. My absolute pleasure.
Just for further context, tell us a bit about your journey and the type of work that you get involved with. That'd be great.
Got into the recruiting business 3 years out of university. Graduated McGill, got a job. Graduated McGill, went to the Arctic, led an expedition to the Arctic, came back, got a job, stayed with the company 3 years. They had no soul. I left. Went into banking. They had less of a soul. And along the way, I had a bunch of people that were working for me at this retail place that all wished they were doing something else. And so we used to go in, we formed a club, and we used to go into our offices at lunch hour and we'd market each other. And I actually placed 21 of my own people. And then I discovered this whole staffing industry. And this is back in 85, right? And actually 82 to 85. And I thought I'd be good at it. I approached everybody in town. Nobody would hire me because I didn't have any direct sales experience. One guy actually let me go 13 interviews. And on the 13th interview at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning, when he opened his door to go out jog, he said, "You're here again." I said, "Yeah." He said, "If I came, you give me the job." So that's how I got my first job as a headhunter. That's my journey. And from there, it's just been, all uphill.
All uphill from there. Yeah, sounds about right. So what do you tend to get involved with today? What kind of projects, what kind of people?
We have for the last 15 years. So my business partner is my wife. We're both active in the search firm. We have professional researchers. And we've been at it for 33 years. The last 15 years has been nothing but senior executives. I just finished a chief information officer role for a company called Telesat. They're building a LEO constellation, high-speed internet from satellites. And that's the kind of stuff I do. So C-suite, VP sales, VP marketing, VP operations. So VP sales and COOs are our sweet spot no matter what. We just finished 3 COOs since Christmas. That's it.
Yeah, got it. You're also spending time coaching people on the other side of the hiring equation as well, right? Is that something you get involved with?
You mean candidates or employers?
Yeah, candidates, yeah.
Because employers need it actually more than candidates do, but that's another story, right? Oh, definitely. Serious. So, yeah, I decided about 20 years ago I was going to raise money to build English-speaking schools in Quebec. I live on the French side of Canada in Quebec. And so long story short, I wrote a book called The Headhunter's Guide to the Galaxy. And you can tell what I read, right? And we started a fundraiser. Anyway, long story short, that book ended up, I sold it to a publisher in New York. And along the way, I reached out to one of my mentors, Jay Conrad Levinson, who wrote the Guerrilla Marketing series, and said, "Hey, Jay, I've written this book. I've read all your stuff. I love it. Would you mind reading mine?" He said, "Sure." This is back in the day when, I sent it by email and I had to email text, and I had to cut it up into a bunch of slices because this is 2002, 2003. And he comes back and says, "Hey, I love it. What can I do?" I said, "Write the forward." He says, "Sure." So he wrote the forward, and then I got a hold of Guy Kawasaki and said, "Hey, this is the guy that launched the Apple, right? Hey, Guy, you don't know me, but Jay Conrad Levin." Anyway, and then Seth Godin, and then Brian Tracy, and Stephen Covey. And that's how I got into writing for job hunters. The book ended up being called Career Guide for the High-Tech Professional, Where the Jobs Are Now and How to Land Them. And about a year after that, I gave Jay his copy. He was in Toronto, and I went down to see him. And I jokingly said, "Hey, why don't we write Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters? Andrew, careful what you ask for or wish for." And the next thing you know, I got a call from his agent, who's not been my agent now for the last 15 years. And I wrote Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters, and then wrote the second one and the third one, and the fourth one is on being penned now. So yeah, do I go out of my way to coach job hunters? No, because there are people like you that do that professionally. I wrote the book to make sure that candidates were a little bit better informed when they were being headhunted or looking for a job. And, specifically, I think where it helps with coaches is I think if people have read the book, then I at least I think it helps them focus in on what their value is. So when they go to see a coach like you, they can say, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I like to do. Here are my accomplishments. Andrew, how do you figure I should, take this to market, or how can you help me take this to market? So that's my take on the business. That's, and for the employers, I wrote Hiring Greatness, How to Recruit Your Dream Team and Crush the Competition. And that sold about 50,000 copies in North America, 1 million copies in 6 months in China, in Chinese. And then I wrote Executive Recruiting for Dummies. So I've done both sides of the fence. So there's I said, there's nothing you can ask me that I probably can't answer. In fact, we play Stump the Recruiter whenever I'm speaking. And I hold a $50 US bill and say, hey, ask me a question. If I can't answer it, the $50 is yours. And it's American, it's not Canadian. And I've had the same $50 bill since I started doing this in 2006. So no one's done it.
That sounds like a challenge. Let's see what we can do. So
absolutely, man.
Well, first question then. You mentioned earlier about your first couple of jobs and that there was no soul in those jobs. Why do so many people continue in jobs that don't fulfill them?
I think the real answer is that they don't understand that they have a choice. Because they do. I have a lot of friends who I eventually end up placing, and my best friend I placed 5 times. And the first thing I always ask candidates is, who do you want to work for? And they inevitably say, well, I don't know. And I always say, then I can't help you. But if they do say they know, I'll say, great. So what do you want to do there? And they say, well, they're not looking for a job. And I said, well, that's the part you don't understand. And this as a coach, 95% of the jobs are not advertised. Call it the hidden job market. It's not that we're trying to hide things from people, but it just is what it is. It's hidden because most employers, 95% of them, can't afford $500 to $1,000 a month to run an ad on Monster or one of these places. That's why the jobs aren't posted. But most people don't understand or they only start to understand it when they work with a coach like you, is they can pick their top 10 companies and figure out what it is that they do that might be of interest to a hiring manager there. And then working with a coach like you, they figure out how to make those intros and get in and have those discussions. But most people don't realize that they have a choice. Most people go from, I got a job, I've been laid off, or we've gone under, I need another job. I pick up the newspaper, or that's what I did in my generation, or I go online and I see what's out there. You don't have to settle for what's out there. In fact, that's what most people do, and most people are average. Who really wants to be average, right? That answer your question? Because I'm holding my 50. I'm keeping it on that one for sure.
Yeah, I think you're definitely keeping your 50 on that one. I think the point around they don't realize the choice they have is absolutely spot on. How can we do more to shine a light on that? Because for me, my journey, like a lot of people's, is I only actually ended up doing what I wanted to do once somebody had fired me and I had to. Even though I knew in the back of my mind what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be, it took someone to fire me to then get my butt in gear and go and do what I should have been doing the whole time. And that's a very common situation with clients as well. They have some kind of health scare or some kind of major life event, and then they go and live the life they were supposed to. It's like, how can we get interjection going earlier, do you think, David, in terms of helping people make the shift and realize they've got options?
Fire everybody. Or
fire everybody.
Or, have an event like COVID-19.
Right.
In all seriousness, health risks aside, what COVID-19 has done, and we won't see this for 6 to 18 months, is I think it has afforded people that have jobs the opportunity to think, do I really want to do this? When things lift, do I really want to do this? Am I having any fun? And people that got let go and were out of work, it forced them to go, okay, what do I really want to do? And this is a good thing, not COVID-19, but being forced to do this, because what happens all over the world, and this, when HR goes out to advertise for a job, they got a list of what they're looking for in a candidate. And if you're not like 99 out of 100 on the list, they're not going to interview you. You're not going to get a chance to talk to anybody. And HR are the gatekeepers. So, it took HR a long time to learn this lesson. People listening would be well advised to learn that lesson themselves now. Make your own list of what you want in a job, and then go and find it. Work with someone like you, for example. What we tell people to do all the time is what we call the monster hack. Take your top 3 skills that you have that you want to sell, right? It's important. You want to actually use these skills. Go to Monster and throw them in Monster, spin the wheel and see what comes up. What comes up is a whole host of occupations and jobs that use those skills that you probably didn't even know about. So start reading through those things and realize every one of these job postings that you find, there's 10 more out there that aren't advertised. That's how you start to realize quickly what you could be doing rather than what you are doing. And when you do it, the Monster hack like that, if you throw in those skills and the jobs come up, well, you can actually go and apply for those. Why? Because they're looking for the skills that you have. They just told you that in the ad. So that's a quick way to find a better job. And I think everybody needs to, think the way my kids have been trained to think. You get a job, you work like hell for the first 2 weeks, and then you stick your head up and go, what's next? Because that's what you have to do. This next book, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters 4.0, whenever it comes out, will be all about career combat and how you ready yourself for the battle, because it's a battle. Does that answer that question, Andrew?
It certainly does. It's a great answer. Yeah.
You still got my $50. Okay.
Yeah, you're calling your 50 for now. But it's true, right? We plan our finances. A lot of people put a lot of planning into their health and wellness. And yeah, not very many people, your average Joe walking down the street, has any kind of career combat plan.
And we never taught this in school. I mean,
No,
this is my big bugaboo. And the next 2 books are all about that. One for employers, that one's called Revolutions Need Leaders. And it's all about Industry 4.0 leadership and how you hire Industry 4.0 leaders. I'll stop talking about that. But we're not taught this stuff in school, and our parents don't know. And everybody believes, because we've all been told this, networking is the best way to find a job. Let me do the math for you on, so if I can, for just a second, Andrew, because I know it by heart. In the UK, the average job hunter spends 54 minutes a day looking for a job. Okay, 54 minutes. I know that from a study, but 5 years ago. In the US, it's 48 minutes. Well, in the US, the average job hunter spends 40 weeks looking for a job. If you do the math and multiply, 40 weeks by 45 minutes, because it's easier to do the math, it's about 146 and a half hours. And if you take 146 and a half hours, that's how long it takes you to get a job. Well, what if you worked with a coach or you had a program that took that 146 hours, and instead of you working for 45 minutes a day, you actually work for a full day of 8 hours. You now shrink that 146 and a half hours down to a 3.5 hour work week. Now, this is a theory that David has, but I've tested this hundreds of times on stage. No one's ever been able to dispute it. And I used to have this discussion with Dick Bowles, who wrote Parachute, because that's the first book I ever read. I said to Dick, where's the study conclusively? Where's the study that the government or anybody else that's has not got an axe to grind has ever done that proves that networking is the best way to find a job? Because it's never been done. So when you're out of work, your friends say, well, meet so-and-so or meet so-and-so, or you got to do more networking. No, networking is pointless unless you've got a plan that leads you, through a set of doors that you've, pre-constructed to meet people that you actually want to meet. And, that's the difference between going out and looking for a job by yourself, quite frankly. And this is why I believe in career coaches, and having a coach make you accountable and and hold up that mirror going, okay, so did you really do your best? Honestly, you're only looking for a job today for 3 hours? No. And then you went golfing. Forget it. Hope that wasn't too far off track.
Lovely sales pitch for careers coaches as well. So thanks very much for that. We enjoyed it.
But it's not. And I'm not a careers coach, but I believe in the business. Everybody, people pay for tennis lessons, for golf lessons, for swim lessons. But people are reticent to pay for a career coach because they don't understand the value, because I believe everybody thinks, well, I'll find a job networking. And you know what? You probably will in 40 weeks. If you want to do better than that, like if you don't have 8 months or 10 months of salary in the bank to dedicate to looking for a job, you're better off to spend a couple $1,000, get a career coach, and get a job in 3.5 or 4 weeks instead of 40 weeks. Just my opinion.
No, I totally agree, of course. Fantastic answer. Thank you for that. I wanted to talk to you about the hiring equation in general. And I've worked in headhunting all over the world, the same as you, in the past. It's a global problem whereby on one side of the hiring equation, you have some really quality people who are available on the market and ready to work. And then on the other side of the hiring equation, you have businesses saying that their biggest barrier to growth is talent acquisition. So I'm keen to hear your thoughts around how those two things can exist. What is the gap in the middle? What aren't we getting right? How have we managed to create this system in a way that it's broken, that you've got great people who can't find jobs and great companies who can't find people?
Well, what's the common denominator in all that equation? I know the answer to the question, so I won't make your audience puzzle. Common denominator is the HR department in the companies. And, and I've said this on stage at HR conventions. I never get invited back the second time, by the way. It should not be, your listeners will understand when I say most HR departments are not staffed by the company's best and brightest. And yet, because people, that are rocket scientists don't go into HR. People that go into HR typically, not everybody, but 98%. And I have a lot of enemies because of this. But the typical HR person goes into HR because they couldn't get in the sciences, they couldn't get in legal, and they're a people person and they had to get a degree. Well, that's a pretty poor reason to go into HR. If you want to go into HR, go in it because you want to help a business or an organization flourish. So there's the problem. You've got people out of work and companies that can't find jobs. And I say this now, but I say this all the time in these seminars or speeches I give. When we go into a recession, the guys in the ivory tower, the executives all come down, they gather everybody in the lunchroom, and everybody's terrified now because they figure layoffs are coming, they're all getting fired. They gather them all in the late lunchroom and they say, business is not good. So we're not going to hire anybody. We've got a hiring freeze. But nobody gets fired, right? So everybody goes, wow, escape that one, right? And the executives go back up in the elevator, back into the, the big boardroom, and they go, what are we going to do for new business? We need a savior. Meanwhile, Jesus has walked in the front door, water walkers on, the whole 9 yards. My stepmother was a nun, so I'm not going to get struck down while I'm saying this, but Jesus has walked in the front door and has said to reception or HR, hey, I'd like to talk to you. I've done this. Oh no, we got a hiring freeze. So the solution is walked in the front door like a job hunter who's well qualified to solve a problem. And they've been stopped at the front desk and said, no, we have a hiring freeze. No, we're not hiring. Nope, I don't know you. And you can't network into an organization when there's a hiring freeze. In fact, you can't network into most organizations you want to work at because most people can't or won't or aren't allowed to talk to you, a stranger, about their current employer. So we teach something that you'd probably enjoy this called networking with the newly departed. Pick your top 10 list, go to Google, type in the name of the company you want to work for, the department you want to work in, the word resume, and the word minus, or the symbol minus, and the word apply without a space. And that'll bring you back all the resumes at the companies that you want to work at. And then you pick one, you pick it up the phone because you get their resume off of Google. And you say, hey, Andrew, my name's David Perry, and I just downloaded your resume off of Google. Can I ask you a couple quick questions? You are going, oh my God, a headhunter's calling me, wow. And you'll say yes or no, or better, call me back later. And you can go through and ask a couple of questions to find out whether it's even worth your while to go and talk to those companies. And you can find out whether the company is on the rise or if it's crashing, and whether your skills can help in either case. You can find out whether the manager is on the rise or they're a putz, and save yourself a whole lot of time. So bypass HR as often as you possibly can, and that's the way to do it. And the reason Executive Recruiting for Dummies was written, I had to go out to a whole bunch of my recruiting friends and say, I'm not trying to put you out of business. I just want to help educate hiring managers and their HR partners, because there are some great HR partners, but I want to educate them on how to do what they need to do to hire the best and brightest. And part of that is making the hiring manager actually putting them back in charge of hiring and taking it away from the HR department, who aren't trained to do this anyway. I mean, I've talked to numerous people over the last 15 years about how much recruiting experience did you get or training did you get while you're in university or college. And most of them was like day and a half, how to write a job ad, blah, blah, blah. And yet when they drop into real life, this is 95% of what they do. Someone else does payroll. So I think most HR people would be grateful to go back to doing payroll and benefits and, organizing Christmas parties and doing all that kind of engagement stuff, and bring in a recruitment department and recruiters, great recruiters. And this, I don't know how many you've ever met with an HR background, but there aren't very many. I mean, I'm an economist and a statistician by training. Most really good recruiters don't have an HR background. They can still do the assessment part, but they have a sales and marketing background or a psychology background. So to go back to your question, which you asked 5 minutes ago, and I'm sorry I talked so much, what's the problem between all these well-qualified candidates and these employers who are complaining that they can't find anybody? The common denominator is an HR department that's getting in the way. And I say this with authority because I sat on the board of directors or was the chair of two of the largest HR bodies in Canada, and I ran as an active participant and the only recruiter, two of the largest projects that SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Managers, have ever done in their life. And I know thousands of HR managers. So what's the answer to the problem? Stop applying for jobs, start targeting companies, and start finding people inside those companies you can have a conversation with about skills that you want to use and can bring value to that company.
Fantastic advice. I love that. Be the CEO of your job search.
Exactly there. What, you summed it up so well. Why couldn't you told me that before?
That's definitely the executive summary.
Hey everybody, it's Andrew here. Just wanted to very briefly interrupt this podcast episode to tell you a little bit more about our Career Jump Club. So our Career Jump Club was created to help job seekers understand what they want and how to get it, right? So becoming a club member is a great move if you're looking to get the clarity and confidence in order to secure your next role. With the membership, you get a number of different things. So first thing you get is access to our online platform, which has over 30 videos, 40, 50 different templates, workbooks, and it takes you through everything from sort of understanding what you want to how to position your CV and LinkedIn, how to interview, how to close offers and negotiate better salaries, a full end-to-end job search course effectively for senior leaders. So you get that, you get a fortnightly group coaching call, which is with me and with the other members, where we bounce around best practice, share slide decks, share techniques, and share the latest data on what's working for people. And you get to, most importantly, become part of our closed LinkedIn group and our closed community. And in there is where the magic often happens, because you get people referring each other into opportunity, supporting each other, and just sharing. And that's what it's all about. So if you're financially able and you'd like to invest in your job search, head on over to www.execcareerjump.com, all one word, /club, and you'll find the landing page and come and give it a go. We'll see you in there. Anyway, back to the pod.
There's been a lot of speculation ever since I've been in the recruiting and exec search ecosystem for the last 20 years of the death of the CV. And plenty of people have tried to disrupt this process and take CVs out of the recruitment world. What's your view in terms of, will we ever see the death of the CV, or are CVs here to stay in the future?
Why would you want to? Why would you ever want to kill off a CV? I mean, I read them all the time. I mean, I am an advocate for one-pagers. The Guerilla resume that I write about in Guerilla Marketing for Job Hunters is a one-pager, but it can be a three-pager. The problem is that most people don't understand how to write a resume or what goes into it. That's the big issue. And that's why people say, well, we don't need these things anymore. We've got LinkedIn, or we've got, social media. And absolutely you do. But it's not the same thing. What people need to learn to do is to focus in on what they want to do that the employer will be interested in. So it's, it's a one-to-one marketing campaign, and learn that the CV really is a piece of marketing collateral. And all you really need a CV for, in my world anyway, at the end of this thing, is a justification for HR to go, okay, well, I didn't meet them yet. Can I meet them? Yes, you can meet them, and you can tick the boxes. And you need that for board approval. You need that for, to make sure that you ticked all the boxes and hired the right individual. It's all about, what's a term I use all the time? Risk avoidance. And that's what a CV is for, risk avoidance. Most people don't realize that putting responsible fors, I was responsible for, for 4 or 5 or 12 or 21 pages has been my record I've seen, is pointless. You can't bore somebody into interviewing you. People try, but they can't.
That's a lovely quote for a social post at some point. You can't bore someone into interviewing you. I think that's cracking. Yeah, it's true. I just think people get so hepped up with getting all the buzzwords in there, and they're terrified of ATS machines and whether or not their CV is going to pass through and all of this stuff, that you end up with these monstrosities of documents getting submitted.
Do you want to let your folks have some fun with the ATS systems?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, this is so cool. I love this. So you have to visualize this, folks. You've got your resume. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, whatever it is. You want to add one more page to the back of your resume. And you're going to add this one page that's going to guarantee that the applicant tracking system is going to kick your resume out first. Here's what you do. You go and get the job you've applied for online. And there are 12,000 other people that applied as well, but you're going to come out first. And here's why. Because you're going to go get that ad. You're going to copy it. You're going to go to the last page of your CV. You're going to paste it. And then you're going to copy everything that you've pasted and put it in one packet, like one point. So it all shrinks down onto one page. And then you're going to change the font color to white. So it looks like a blank piece of paper. I've gotten in trouble many times for suggesting this. And then what happens is when it goes through the system, you send your CV in through the system, it gets read. Well, the applicant tracking system says, oh my God, there's a 100% match. Of course there is. You just put their ad back on the paper and it spits you out. But the person that gets that doesn't see that. All they see is, wow, this person is perfectly qualified because the computer said they were perfectly qualified.
Yeah, the old white text. We love the white text.
Yep.
No, I love that. Cracking tip. I recommend everyone gives that a go. That's a really nice thing to do. Interviews. Let's talk interviews while we've got you. What do companies need to be doing better to get better results from their hiring and their interviews?
Well, companies need to spend a little bit of time structuring interview questions that are going to be based on what they're looking for in a candidate for any job that they post. Most companies don't. Most interviewers, and I'm sure most of your listeners can relate to this, have been asked the question, so tell me about yourself. Now, that's not a trick question, really. They're saying, the employer is saying, tell me about yourself because they didn't do any homework. They may not have read your resume. They don't know why you're the best person qualified. And now they're turning it over to you to say why you're the best candidate and tell them and put them under their misery because they don't want to meet the other 6 people in the hallway or the other people that have. So here's what you do. You do 2 things. You answer the question by saying, where would you like me to begin? Why do you do that? Because they're going to tell you what they're most interested in hearing about. So that's where you begin. And right after you've done that, or right before you've done that, you say, I got a bunch of questions I'd like to ask you at the end of the interview, I guess, or whenever. I said, so I actually wrote them up. I brought you a copy. Here's a sheet. Here's your copy of the interview questions I want to make sure that we discuss because we're going to get carried away and we're going to forget the time and all that kind of stuff. And you hand it to the interviewer and the interviewer will go, okay. And most of them, I've never seen them not do this. They'll take it and they'll start reading it and they'll go, oh, can I ask you this question? And they'll start to ask you the questions you're going to ask them. Now, the reason you're doing this is not to trick them. You're trying to help them. You write out the 8 or 10 questions, whatever it's going to take to make sure that these questions are asked and answered by you because they contain the information that interviewer needs to make a decision to hire you or not, and probably isn't, I'm not going to say bright enough, but probably isn't bright enough to be able to frame the questions that way, right? To ask them. So just give them the questions. And, worst case scenario, you get those questions asked at the end of the interview. With best case scenario, all of a sudden, it's not taking over the interview so much as you're now going to be fully informing the person sitting across the table from you why you're the best person for the job. And by the way, if you're in an interview, they've already made the decision they want to hire you. Now they're just waiting for you to tell them why. And you don't need to sit there and thump your chest and brag about yourself because that's what everybody else does. No, ask very interesting, probing questions about their issues that bring out the skills and abilities and talents and experience that you have that that they need. Does that answer that question, Andrew?
It certainly does, yeah. I like how you finish every answer with, does that answer that question as well? Because that's something that people should do at interview too.
I agree. And I do it because I'm not a great communicator, never have been. I'm just resilient as hell. And I started doing this about 12 years ago. In 2008, I had a massive stroke that left me unable to walk, talk, read, or write. And the people in my industry here in Ottawa found out about it and ran around town and told everybody I was brain dead. Technically, they were right for about 5 days, but the brain was working. I just couldn't get the mouth to attach to the synapses in the back. So I had to reprogram myself by reading everything I possibly could when I started to be able to read again and reprogramming my brain. So I always ask, did I explain that correctly? Because I don't know.
It's also a tremendous habit. It's a tremendous habit anyway. And it's great to see you looking so well and energized on this. I would have never have known that part of your background. So fantastic.
Can in a can. They're tan in a can. Thank you.
Yeah, looking really good. When it comes to writing a book, there's a lot of people who are starting to self-publish, starting to do their own thing in terms of writing books. What would your advice be for them? What do you see are the benefits of people from a career perspective of maybe getting their thoughts into a book? Talk to us about that.
You mean people that are looking for a job or recruiters?
People that are looking for the job, or they might be in role. I just mean leaders in general. We're finding more and more self-publishing and becoming an author. What do you see as the pros and cons of it?
The only con is time.
Yeah.
The pros is simply you're leaving your mark on the world, if that's what you want to do. But more importantly, you're helping educate people. I mean, I wrote the book first as a fundraiser, and then it became, okay, so many people got laid off. I didn't want them calling me anymore. I figured I'd write this quick little book so they could read this. And it just sort of got out of hand. But I encourage people all the time and to do it in bite-sized pieces. Whenever anybody tells me they want to write a book, I have a 15, 20-minute conversation with them. And I end up sending them a 3-by-5-inch stack of index cards. That's how you write a book. You got an idea, like a blog post. You got an idea, you write it down the index card, you throw it in your drawer, throw it in a box, and someday you're going to get up and you're not going to have any more ideas. And that's when you call me and we go through the box and we organize your ideas and you string them together and you've got yourself a book. What it does for individuals when they do this, whether they're writing a book or they're keeping a blog or they're doing a white paper, is it demonstrates your expertise. Rather than telling people, you know, I'm a thought leader and I'm innovative and I'm an out-of-box thinker, because everybody says that in that 1.5 inches, 2 inches at the top of every resume. Don't bother. Don't tell me. Show me. Kindergarten time, right? Show and tell. Show me. And a lot of people are reticent to do it because they don't think they can write correctly. And I'll give you a secret right now. The way I wrote Hiring Greatness, How to Recruit Your Dream Team and Crush the Competition, it's a very dry book for recruiters, except the first 5 or 6 pages, which is the story. And I got the story because it's the story of my 1,000th search for a COO. I got the story by strapping my digital tape recorder to the seat next to me in my car and driving up and down the highway for 1.5 hours talking to myself, telling this story. And I say this to people all the time. If you speak, if you give talks, you present to people at work or outside work, take a digital tape recorder with you, record your stuff. 45-minute conversation is about the same length when it's transcribed as a chapter in a book. So if you do 12 different speeches, get them transcribed. There's tons of transcription software out there and you've got your book. And then go out and hire yourself a really good, ruthless, take no prisoners editor. And
Yep.
Yep.
That's it. That's the way to do it. I love that idea of writing how you speak as well. We always say that when we're advising people on social posts, that try and write as you speak because it will always land in a better way with the audience in any case. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I had no idea that's what I did. That's one of the reasons Jay asked me to write the book with him. And I actually wrote it. He's the brand, I'm the writer. But when we got the first book back, Wiley had sent it off to 2 ladies in Texas who were my editors. And they sent it through this misoginator. That's all I can call it. And it took out everything. I use the word America because America is a visual. And they, for example, and they changed America to United States of America. So it just didn't have the same oomph in the statements. They did that in about 50 places. And I called them up after I'd read the whole book when they got it back from them. And I'm literally in tears. I'm introducing myself. I'm in tears. And I'm going, honey child, why are you crying? I said, because you edited my book and I read it. It sounds like crap. What do you mean? And I explained it to them. And they said, well, like we can just reverse that process. I said, would you please? And they literally, I don't know what they did, but it's like pushing a button and all my stuff went right back in. So, I came across, if you read the edition that they sent me, I sounded like every other business book, dull and boring. And when you read Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters, I actually have a sense of humor and an opinion. And it comes screaming through in the pages. And that's what people want. They want integrity. We call it authenticity now. We want leaders that are authentic. So, take some time to sit down and craft your thoughts. And then if you don't write well, get them edited, but don't take the texture, don't take the context away and don't take the texture out. Just have someone, maybe smooth out the lines if you're not used to doing it yourself. I think 100%. It's a great idea.
100%. Vanilla doesn't go well online anyway. You don't want to sound like everybody else. I think a lot of senior people, when they're starting blogging and things, they have this blocker. They think that everything they produce has to be, McKinsey or BCG or PwC level thought leadership. It's like, it doesn't have to be that. In fact, it's more relatable if it's not.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Good. Okay. Couple of quick fire ones then, if we can, David, just to finish off. So what books have helped shape your thinking that you would recommend to listeners?
I read Guerrilla Marketing, the original book, Guerilla Marketing. The two books that helped me most as a recruiter and an individual, one's called Winning Through Intimidation. And it's a story of a real estate guy that goes into commercial real estate, and all of the trials and tribulations he faced as people tried to cut off his hand when he was reaching for his fee. So it's how he won while others were trying to intimidate him. So Winning Through Intimidation, brilliant book. It's about 30 years old, and I recommend it to everybody that's in recruiting, and everybody that's in business. And the other book that affected me was called The Goal. And the goal is all about process and understanding what it is you want to produce at the end of the day. And both of those books in particular are told in a story fashion, which is why I wrote Hiring Greatness in a story fashion with the parables and the anecdotes all the way through it. I think that's the way people learn. People learn through stories. And as you can tell, I'm a storyteller out of habit. Those are the books that shaped me the most.
Love that. And are there any quotes that mean something to you or that you try and take with you or live by?
Yeah, it's a quote from my mother, actually my stepmother, who was a nun until my dad met her. Another story. It's funny, but I won't go into it. And, she used to say, don't ask me what to do. Do what you can do. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, initiative, right?
Yep.
We like that.
I have all kinds of people talking about the world's in lousy shape, and pollution and racial bias and all kinds of issues that we're facing today. And I keep reminding people that we're in a far better place than we were when I was their age, which is 30 years younger in most cases. The difference now is we're here now because someone 30 years ago said, I'm going to do something about it, rather than look to everybody else to do something about it and they just talk about it.
Yep. Take ownership, take action. It's how we evolve.
It's your world, create it.
Love that. What's the best interview question you've ever heard?
Lord. The best interview question I've ever heard.
$50 coming here, right?
Can you roll me back to when you're getting out of university and college and take me through your career and tell me what's important? Now, that actually happens to be my question. It's the only question I ask in an interview. And as they go through their career, sometimes I ask why, but mostly I ask how. How'd you do that? How'd you do that? Oh, how'd you do that? Because that allows me to understand who they are as a person, how they handled things, and why they moved from career to career. So it helps me understand their pattern, because everybody's got a pattern. And it allows me to dig deep and get at stuff that matters without being too intrusive.
Yeah, very good.
$50 is still here.
$50 is very safe. And on the other side, what are good questions that a candidate should ask a hiring leader in terms of assessing fit on their side? What are good questions to ask companies?
The question I always suggest to my friends ask, because we don't prep candidates before they go in interviews. They go in naked. If at an executive level, if you haven't figured out what you want to ask, I'd rather have you crash and burn in front of the client than, we find out you're a putz and you crash and burn later, because we got a 1-year guarantee. So the best question I've encouraged people to ask is look at the hiring manager and say, okay, let's just say, for example, you hire me or whoever you hire. And a year from today, if someone starts today or tomorrow, a year from now, if we look back over the last year, what is it that they would have done or brought to the role that would make you say, oh, that was the best hire I've ever made? And then shut up.
Yep.
Because they're going to tell you.
Yep.
And whether it's at the beginning of the interview, which most people don't have the stones to do, or at the end of the interview, because you'll extend it, it'll tell you whether or not the job is right for you, first of all. It really will. Second of all, if there's anything that you should have told them that you didn't, because they didn't ask the right question, right? That you should tell them now, go, oh yeah, you're right. That is so important. You know, when I was over at ABC Company, this is what we did. And this is how we did it. You know, is that what you're thinking? And they'll go, yeah. And we've had people go into interviews and just absolutely bomb. This, you know, when we were coaching candidates, because I've run a Guerilla job search boot camp for the last 12 years across America. We've had people go into job hunts or into interviews and only ask that question at the end of the interview. In fact, we call it a doorknob question. You know, as you reach for the doorknob, because we said the interview's over and you're leaving, you know you've bombed, you turn around and ask that question. And essentially that way, what is it, you know, a year from now that somebody would have accomplished in this role that would make you say that was the best hire you ever made, as you're holding the doorknob to leave. And they'll tell you. And you sit, we've had people come back and sit down and have 2 or 3 hour interviews after they were already told, you know, we're done. Mm. Because now what you're having, Andrew, I know you know this, what people need to understand, especially at the executive level, what people need to understand is an interview is not really an interview, or at least we don't want it to be an interview. We want it to be a discussion. We want to come to the table as peers. And if you come to the table as a peer, recognizing that someone is interviewing you or having a meeting with you, we don't even call them interviews, having a meeting with you is because they've got a problem and something that you said in an email or a voicemail or on your resume or in your cover letter indicated to them that you might be someone that can solve their problem. So you don't want to have this back and forth that we have at Wimbledon, right? Ask a question, someone answers it, ask a question, someone answers it. You want to have an open-ended discussion, just like you forced me to do today.
I totally agree. And that is a brilliant note to finish on, because people tend to either take on the parent or the child all too often. That's damaging, isn't it?
We all want to be adults.
Yes, adult to adult all times. With fun, of course. We don't want to be too adult. Anyway, you've been awesome. I knew you were going to be when we looked at your profile. So thanks so much for getting involved and sharing this value with our audience today. It's been fantastic. For anybody that wants to follow you, follow up, engage with more of your content, what's the best way for any of our listeners to do that, David?
To follow, if you're an executive, you want to talk to me, for some reason, you know, perrymartell.com. That's the website. If you're a job hunter and you want a whack of ideas, got a brand new website up called mynewjobhunt.com. And we're slowly porting over about 1,400 blog posts that I've written. I think about 200 of them now. So you can go in there and ask a question about just about anything and get an answer. Yeah.
Well, make sure you take up David on that. See if you can ask him something that he can't answer. You might win the $50. I failed to do that today, but what we haven't failed to do is share a load of value. So thanks so much again. And I recommend everyone follows up with David. And yeah, keep well. It's been good to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Career Jump podcast with Andrew MacAskill. For more resources and information, just head over to the Career Jump website at www.execcareerjump.com to supercharge your job search and start making moves. Let's get to work.